All right, joining us tonight, we have Robbie E. Robbie, how's it going, man? How's everything down your way?
Hey, it's going good, but is that it? Just hey, Robbie E, no former X Division champion, two-time tag champ, former television champ, at one time the greatest hair in pro wrestling, dad bod destroyer, men's fitness. I mean, bro, come on.
I knew that was gonna. Hopefully, that was there for me, so I was banking on that one. But man, thank you so much for joining us, man. Uh, I want to get right into it because we're on another wrestling podcast, but you have just dived into the podcast realm itself. Why it ended on MLW? Can you tell everybody out there what's going on? Because you're breaking iTunes charts and everything right now. You're all over the place.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. I do appreciate it because I definitely am trying to spread the word about this podcast. So basically, when I left Impact Wrestling, I obviously had more free time on my hands. So what does every wrestler do when they have free time on their hands? They start a freaking podcast. But then I pulled back on the idea a little bit because I didn't want people to get the wrong idea to think that I was done being an active wrestler. Because I kind of felt like hosting a podcast and maybe it means I'm done. I don't know. I was just sour on it for a few months.
Mhm.
Even though I really liked the idea that I had, but anyway, then I hooked up with Court Bauer. I spoke to him. I told him about my idea, and he loved it. And by him loving it, it kind of gave me a second win that I said, you know what, I'll give this thing a shot. Being on the MLW network, I mean, it's a pretty big platform for wrestling podcasts, so I'm glad it's there. And basically, the concept is just, why it ended. It's kind of just why did it end for a lot of wrestlers. I want to get guys on with stories where everyone doesn't know their story.
Mhm.
So whether it's a guy that had a 3-month run or a 2-week run or a 1-year run in '91 or whatever, just people when you hear their name, you kind of say, holy shit, I forgot about that guy. So they're not really on the indie circuit. They're not hitting conventions. They've kind of vanished. And I think that's intriguing to people a little bit because they're actually hearing stories that they don't know. Because I find it that a lot of wrestlers are just on a lot of the podcasts telling the same stories. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of it also. I find myself telling the same story. So what I'm trying to bring is just a little something different. You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure, and I think that's what's great about it. For us, we don't have the wrestler experience, if you will. We're fans of the sport, so we try to do what we can. But I mean, Why It Ended, I think, is a great name and a great way to break into the podcast realm because it is different, and that's what people love. But I gotta ask you, is it easy as a pro wrestler to talk to the other wrestlers? I mean, since you kind of know what they've gone through, and it's just maybe there's stuff that you know about that we don't know about, and maybe it's just easier for you to ask them.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think that's why guys, because, someone else had asked me in another interview that I did, um, you know, based on what the show's about, do you think guys, might not want to be on? As anyone said no, based on it's talking about like why their careers ended. But I think they feel comfortable talking to me because I am a fellow wrestler and I understand. And what I want everyone to know is we're not trying to put anyone on this that doesn't have a happy ending because everyone that's on our podcast telling their story is in a positive, happy place now. So no matter what it is that they're doing, it's not a story where the podcast's going to end and you're going to say, man, I feel bad for that guy. That whatever they're doing now in their life, they're happy about. But also, what I do want it to do for a lot of these good guys, even though they are in good places, they still on the weekends might want a booking or two. So I think for a lot of these names that are going to resurface, it's going to help them get some show and convention bookings and some Twitter followers out of it. So, it's helping me have a great podcast. It's helping the fans get great stories, and it's helping the guys that are on it get their names back out there.
No, definitely. And before everybody waits to the end for a plug or whatnot, but where can people subscribe, download, and listen to this before we keep going?
Well, I mean, it's you could go to whyitended.com and get it, or of course it's on iTunes and pretty much wherever you could get any podcast, it's there. But I do ask guys when you listen to it, if you like it, leave feedback, give a 5-star review, write a review, freaking follow us on Twitter at Why It Ended, follow us on Instagram at Why It Ended, and now we even have a YouTube page that you could subscribe to Why It Ended. So hit all those up.
No, definitely. You mentioned that you've been out of TNA for a little bit, but you're still competing. You're still out there. Can you tell us what have you been up to since leaving TNA? Just maybe what's happening outside of the TNA world.
Well, I mean, I'm 34. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm still actively wrestling all around the world. I'm booked 2 to 4 times a week. So I'm definitely still wrestling a few weeks. I got a few times a week, excuse me. I got international stuff coming up. But, I do want to land myself wrestling somewhere full-time again, signed to a contract. Where that is, I don't know, but I think in 2018, you are going to see Robbie E on your TV screens again. I just don't know where yet.
For sure.
But then, of course, in addition to that, I'm also doing, it just doesn't end for me. Whether it's Mondays, I have Dad Bod Destroyer on Muscle and Fitness. Tuesdays, I have a show called The Real Robbie E on Fight TV. Wednesdays, the podcast, and then Thursdays, I have on Men's Fitness a little video called Back to the Basics where I do a fitness video. So I got a lot of stuff going on that's keeping me busy.
Nice. Well, taking over the world one project at a time. It's great that you're busy. I love seeing you. I love all the videos that you post. Really quick about the Dad Bod Destroyer. Everybody listening out there, for Muscle and Fitness Magazine, what's going on with this? You're working out with your kids. Basically, for all the dads out there too, listening to where maybe giving excuses why we can't work out because we have kids around now. Just briefly again, just tell everybody what you're doing. It's hashtag #DadBodDestroyer too on Twitter. You can follow all the stuff that's going on with Robbie E. But tell us briefly, what are you doing with your kids again?
Well, basically, it started out as kind of a joke, and it still kind of is. Some people, might look at the videos just to be entertained, or you could actually, do the real workouts that I'm doing with my kids. But basically, you got a 20-pound dumbbell, a 20-pound barbell, or you got a 20-pound baby. So while you're playing with your kids, you could squat them, you could shoulder press them, you could curl them, you could use your kid as a dumbbell, get a workout in, and then you're spending father-son or father-daughter time, and the kids love it. They love getting thrown up in the air. It's like you're playing with them, but you're actually getting a pump in. And it sounds silly, but I promise you, give it a try, and you'll actually be like, wow, this is actually a real workout.
No, definitely. And now I feel like you matured as a different Robbie E. I think in the past few years than when you first came in. Is that fair to say? How maybe you evolved as Robbie E. The wrestler?
I was going to say, do you mean the wrestler or do you mean real life? Because I know I matured in my real life.
Well, I mean, we toned the hair down a little bit, right, from the big hair days, from early TNA days. But I mean, just as your character too, you definitely, I don't know, you seem like you're the junior or the senior class version as opposed to like the freshman of Robbie E. starting. Do you feel that way?
I agree with you. I mean, times change. It gets played out. Jersey Shore is kind of fading. It was time to cut the hair. You're only going to be taken so serious when you got blonde highlights and hair about 7 feet high, like Kid from Kid in a Play. So I had to change things up a little bit in my look. So I definitely did get more serious and evolve, and I think I'm still doing that. And I think it was cool for the fans to see a different side of me. And listen. Wrestling's about confidence inside and outside of the ring, and I'm a very confident person. And, I'm proud to say that I could be a very funny guy, or I could be a very serious guy in the ring, and that I am a good wrestler. I think a lot of people forget that I am actually talented and could go in the ring when I have to. So I like showing different sides of myself and doing different things. But, yeah, towards the end of my Impact run, I would agree with you. I guess I'm more of a junior or senior now as opposed to, the dork going into high school, not knowing what he's doing.
No, definitely. Now, do you see yourself too? Because I know you said you have a lot of bookings happening now, but do you see yourself giving advice to guys maybe on things that maybe you wish you were told coming up in the business? Just where you are with your career right now.
Oh, totally. Yeah, if someone's nice and they seem like they have a positive attitude, I always want to help. The problem in wrestling in 2018 is a lot of guys just in a short period of time being in the business, and who knows if it's their fault or not, whether it's how they're trained or what, but a lot of guys just think they know everything, and it's kind of what's, in my opinion, is certainly not helping wrestling. But when guys are willing and they do want to learn, and I love helping out and giving advice because I love wrestling so much. I hate to see people doing things wrong. I want to help.
Sure. Well, you just said, thinking they know it all, but are there any other common mistakes maybe that young guys are making today that maybe you could just give them a quick word of advice on?
I mean, in my opinion, I always stuck with, know your audience, know your opponent, know your location. You're always going to be in different scenarios and different situations. A lot of people don't realize that, and they don't know how to adapt to different, crowds and stuff like that, and they just kind of plan out what they do A to Z, and they just go and do it, and you have to feel up the crowd and that kind of stuff. And then also just, build a character. Don't worry so much about just memorizing 1,000 things. You know what I'm saying? And then also just have respect. Know who you're in the ring with, and if know who's in your locker room. If they've been doing it longer than you, shake their hand, ask for advice, be polite. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, I could go on for hours and hours thinking of stuff, but
No, for sure.
I mean, those are things that come to the top of my head,
No, definitely. And is there anything out there maybe that surprises Robbie E in wrestling today? Is there anything that's happening that's just like it still surprises you that like, wow, I can't believe they did this? Has anything ever come up like that in the past, I don't know, a few years or so?
Yep, 1,000%. Tonight, as I record this podcast with you, I am leaving a birthday party that I was booked on a Tuesday night. I was paid a full rate, yes, I will say that, to wrestle on a birthday party. And this person ran a full wrestling show with a ring and a ring announcer and music and lights and pyro. And let me just say that again, real pyro for their son. And that's where I'm leaving right now. So I'm still kind of in shock. That's why my voice is gone. But I'm still kind of in shock at the situation that I just left. And all I say to it is only in pro wrestling.
Wow, man, I wish I was invited to that birthday. Well, we are. I just want to, it is the biggest time of the year for any wrestling fan out there. Coming up on Mania weekend, it's more than just WrestleMania. But I mean, there's shows going on all over the place. Do you have any plans for WrestleMania weekend, or anything maybe that you love checking out on that weekend that fans should maybe be a part of?
Well, I'm actually booked out in Detroit that weekend. So I will be there for a few appearances and for a wrestling show and for a seminar and stuff. There's so much going on in New Orleans. The past few years, I think I was on shows or WrestleCon and the conventions that weekend around Mania. But this weekend, I'm actually in Detroit. And you know what? It's I'm happy about it. Sometimes it's nice to be away from all the shenanigans and the craziness. I'll stay out of trouble being far, far away in Detroit.
All right. Well, Robbie, where else can fans keep up with you today? Tell us once again about why it ended. Where can they find that once more? Or any other social media and whatnot?
Yeah, so Why It Ended is at Why It Ended, and that's the Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. And then for me, you could follow me on Instagram at Real Robbie E, and then Twitter at Robbie E Impact. And then, of course, my official website, robbie-e.com, where you can find out everything about me.
All right, perfect. Robbie E, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We wish you nothing but the best.